I'm excited. I'm excited to be up here this morning to be able to share with you. But one thing I do want to say is, my goodness, how quickly is the year going? You know, I know that some parents are really excited about next week because school goes back. And some teachers are going, oh no, they're back. When's the next school holidays? And as you know, teachers who count down to the next school holidays. And I used to have a love-hate relationship with holidays. You know, when my kids were little, and they're not so little now, so I actually can't remember when school holidays are or when they are or not. But during the term, I used to go, oh, when is school holidays coming? I don't want to do after-school curriculum anymore. I'm sick of doing the drop-offs and the pickups. And the school holidays would come, and I'd spend amazing time with my kids, and then the last week would come and I'd go, oh man, when's school starting again? And so it would go on. And I think, you know, sometimes we can get so caught up in the year, especially myself, that I've learned that if I don't take time to just stop and breathe, I don't take into account what the Lord is trying to teach me. I miss those important lessons throughout the year, and I miss the celebrations as well. And so I've learnt, especially for this year, I'm going to stop. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to be okay, as Pastor Sandra said last week, in the waiting room. You know, I was raised in New Zealand, and this morning I'm actually talking about the three little pigs. So you're going to have to excuse the accent, because I can't say pigs forever. It's going to be pigs, like New Zealand says it, right? But I was raised with the following custom. Before the clock hit 12 o'clock on New Year's Eve, we would go around the circle and we would all say what our New Year's resolution was going to be. Some of the kids would say, hey, Mum, I'm going to keep my room tidy this year. Or I'm going to get up on time for school. You don't have to yell at me in the morning to hurry up. We got to get out the door. And then you'd have the adults who would say, I'm going to eat healthy this year. Or I'm going to exercise more this year. You know, the same thing each year. Well, according to the Forbes Health One Pulse survey, the average New Year resolution lasts 3.74 months. 8% of respondents stick to their goals for 1 month, while 22% make it 2 or 3 months, and there's only 13% of us that make it 4. You know, they're not great stats for keeping New Year's resolutions. And, you know, as Jimmy said, we're starting the New Year restart in a couple of weeks' time, and he didn't make it all the way through. And no, it's not a New Year's resolution. But, you know, we can try again, and we don't have to put any guilt on ourselves, because the Lord doesn't put guilt on us. But I now no longer make New Year's resolutions. Instead, I ask the Lord for a word or a theme towards the end of the year that I can take into the following year. And sometimes he gives it to me in around about September or October. Sometimes he gives it to me in February, March. And that's okay. I just stand on whatever it is the Lord wants me to do. This year my word is trust. But I don't want to talk into trust yet, because there's not too much of the year gone past that I can, reflect on that word. But I know that it ties into what my theme was last year, and that was standing strong. And I was ordained in August last year, and I thought standing strong was really good, because I've stood strong in my faith for 12 years that it took me to be ordained. But little did I know that the Lord was going to want me to stand strong in so many other areas of my life in 2023. My year started as normal, and then in March, on a Saturday night at 6 p.m, I was having takeaway at the shops, and my phone rang, and I picked it up. And a dear friend from the congregation rang. She said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow afternoon? And I went, oh, that's a bit of a trick question. But okay, I'm hosting the service in church tomorrow, and then I'll be home about 12:30, and I'm free in the afternoon. Fantastic. Why? Well, my daughter's having a hand fasting ceremony tomorrow afternoon, and the lovely person who was supposed to be doing it has caught COVID. Would you do it? Now, those of you who know me, I do the ministry rosters here at church, and when I first started hosting, I'd give myself 8 weeks to be rostered on to be up here so that I could have 8 weeks to prepare an offering message. And that's just the way I do things. I prepared this message well in advance, and Pastor Sandra, who's my mentor, she's laughing at me going, really? And I went, I need to be prepared. So to be asked to do a hand fasting ceremony, which is like a engagement, it goes back to the 700s, according to my husband who looked it up for me this morning, and it was an island that had originated, and back in the day, you used to have little country towns. You used to see a priest once a year, and the priest used to visit each of those country towns. So if you were young and you wanted to get married, well, you had to wait a whole year, and hopefully there'd be lots of weddings probably on that one day. So they used to have what they called a hand fasting ceremony instead, where you could be legally bound for a year until you could get married. Now, this couple wanted a hand fasting ceremony because they wanted their grandparents at their wedding, but they were a little bit worried because most of their grandparents were in their 90s, wouldn't be able to make the wedding. And thank goodness they had the hand ceremony in March because they got married in October and 2 of their grandparents couldn't make it. So, getting back to my story, I went, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it with less than 24 hours notice. And I can say that was one of the highlights of my year. I was just strong in the Lord, and I was faithful going, well, this person who I love dearly has asked me to do it. Obviously, they believe in me. I will. So that was March. And then April came, and I was asked to officiate my first funeral. And I was just so blessed to be asked. And, doing a funeral or doing a wedding, both you feel blessed as the minister in different ways. And then in April, May, I preached my first sermon. In June, we went to Bali for a family holiday. And 3 days after we got back, I officiated a lovely couple's wedding. And then I was ordained in August. I had to stand strong on each of those events. None of them are in my radar. And then September came. But before September came, if you had said to me, Kaye, where are you at in life at this moment in time? I would have said to you, I was on top of the mountain. Life was good, and I was on a high. And who knows how quickly they can come crashing down. Well, September, my world kind of changed a little bit when an external family issue rocked my world. And I became sick for 10 weeks. And it wasn't because of all the events and work, or like some people lovingly said to me, you need to slow down. It wasn't that. It was the fact that I got so stressed out from this family situation that I got sick for 10 weeks. And this family situation is still happening, and this is why I believe the Lord has given me trust for 2024. But I am so thankful also that I can stand firm on my faith foundation in the good times and in the bad. And as I consider what it means to have strong foundations, I'm reminded of the story of the 3 little pigs. So who remembers their bedtime stories? Raise your hands if you remember. Okay, most of us, fantastic. So now I really want to hear what some of those favourite stories are. So can some of you just yell out really quickly, just what are some of the favourite stories that you got told as a little child or you've read to your children? Come on, all of you. The little engine that could. I don't know that one, Cheryl, but that sounds cool. Okay, yep. Anyone else? Pastor Rob? Mr. Men. I love them. I love those books. Yes, absolutely. Anyone else? Oh, how good was that? I love the Hungry Caterpillar. Yep. And 2 more? Rumpelstiltskin. Yes, how cool. Yeah. And 1 more. Pinocchio, yes. I used to call my kids little Pinocchio every now and then, and I won't tell you the reason why. But as you were saying those stories, you can't help but smile, right? Because they bring back such amazing memories of your childhood and what those stories stood for. Well, as a little girl, one of my favourites was the 3 little pigs. And what did I love about the story? I love the fact that my dad in his big gruff voice would say, little pig, and not come in. And so the story would go. And, the whole exaggeration as a parent that you can sow into your children is it's just so much fun. And while scary in some places, the story had a happy ending in which the pigs came together and they won their mission of not being eaten by the wolf. So today we're going back to our childhood as I explore the lessons from the 3 little pigs that we can learn. And we're going to be focusing on Mark 4, 3 to 8. But before I unpack these verses, it's a very interactive service this morning. I need 3 volunteers to just come up here really quickly. I'm not going to embarrass you. Come on, Glenford. Brilliant. And 2 more. Well done, Ron. And Felicity. Fantastic. Well, I don't know if you know the story of the 3 little pigs. And one thing I learned was that each of the little pigs had a name. Yeah, I know. Oh, right. And so the first little pig was called Pfeiffer. And that's going to be Felicity this morning. You have to come down here. Oh, it's like, well, you know what? You can be in the middle. Well, let's not get upset. We'll be in the middle. So you can be Fiddler. Now, I know it sounds really bad in this day and age. It's because he played a violin or what they used to call a fiddle, okay? And you can be Practical Pig. I like Practical Pig, right? What I would like you to do in order, so Felicity, you first, Ron, and then Glenford, and we're going to put a picture up of each of the little pigs. They used to sing, but you don't need to sing. You can just read it out or sing, whichever you feel, you'd like to do. And I'd like, as they say the words of the little pig as the pig was building their house, I want you to listen to the words for each one of them because it's quite important to the rest of my message. So, Felicity.
Okay, I was hoping for this. In the high-pitched voice.
In the high-pitched voice.
Slay. Okay. I build my house on straw. I build my house of hay. I toot my flute and I don't give a hoot. I play around all day.
Very good. Thank you.
In the normal voice. I build my house of sticks. I build my house of twigs. With a hey diddle diddle, I play the fiddle and dance all kind of jigs.
Right, deep voice. I built my house of stone. I built my house of bricks. I have no chance to sing and dance, for work and play don't mix. You can play and laugh and fiddle. Don't you think you'll make me sore? I'll be safe, and you'll be sorry when the wolf comes to your door.
Thank you, guys. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being a part of my message. You can keep that. Yeah, I'd hate you to forget the name of your little pig. So I'm going to assume that these pigs were brothers who were all raised in the same household, they were all loved, and they were all disciplined in the same way. And aside from their unique personalities, they were taught about the dangers of life, and particularly the need to keep an eye out for those who wanted to harm them. In their case, the big bad wolf. So here you have 3 pigs. They've all left home at exactly the same time. Don't know how their parents managed that. And they went to build their homes. And yet they all built their homes out of very different material. Even though they heard the same message from their parents growing up, that they had to be aware of their enemy. So why? Why didn't they all build their homes strong and so it wouldn't fall down? Well, as the old saying goes, a message that is clear to some may fall on deaf ears for others, which may have been the case for the first 2 pigs. And this also applies to our spiritual journeys. We can all hear the same message every week. And yet we can interpret and act on that message in very different ways, sometimes to our benefit and sometimes not. And I believe Jesus understood the phrase fall on deaf ears. And so he devised a method of communicating with the people of the day so that they could understand him. But more importantly, they could remember the teachings that he was sharing with them. And he taught them through parables. So parables and stories, well, they're powerful because we can visualize them as well as hear them. Even if the pictures hadn't gone up on the screen while our amazing volunteers came and read out what the little pig said, you still heard the message and you would have created an image in your mind as to go along with those words. And that image may have been different to the person sitting next to you, but the story still would have been the same. So what is the connection between the 3 little pigs and steadfast or strong foundations in faith? Well, let us examine each of the pigs' attitudes and how we can learn from their actions to ensure that our faith is built on a solid foundation, with strong walls that when we face adversity, those walls will not fall down. Mark 4, 3-9 says, "Listen, consider the sower who went out to sow. As he sowed, this occurred. Some seed fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Other seed fell on rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and it sprang up straight away, since it didn't have deep soil. When the sun came up, it was scorched, and since it didn't have a root, it withered. Other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it, and it didn't produce a crop. Still others fell on good ground and produced a crop that increased 30, 60, and 100 times what was sown." And then he said, "Anyone who has ears to hear should listen." So I refer to the first little pig as the one that's the seed that fell on rocky ground. And in Mark 4, 5-6, Jesus explains that the seed that fell on rocky ground, it sprang up right away since the soil wasn't deep. However, when the sun came up, it withered and it dried because its roots were not deep in the ground enough to be able to support it. Now, some of you may be here who are green thumbs and some of you may not, but I'm sure at some stage in our life we have all planted little seeds and we've watched them pop up through the soil. I always get excited around about that time. And then they grow and they grow and they grow. Well, I've got some herbs on my bench top in front of my window, and I do grow herbs continuously throughout the year. And I remember this one particular day, my herbs were about this big. I grow them till they're about, strong enough to be able to plant it into the actual garden. And I went to work on this particular day, and it was a hot day. And when I came home, instead of standing up straight, my little seedlings, which were halfway grown, had all flopped over. And I felt like the bad mum, to be honest. It was like, oh my gosh, I neglected my plants. They are a living thing. And I thought, well, is this the end? Is this the end for all of my seedlings? And I started watering them a little bit more, prayed over them, gave them a bit of tender care. And for some of those seedlings, they did wither up and they died. But for some of them, they did grow into stronger plants so that I could actually put them into the garden eventually. Our faith is very similar. We can be super excited and enthusiastic when we first begin our faith journey. But unless we walk with someone, unless we're discipled and taught how to pray and how to have a real relationship with the Lord that's not legalistic. I don't have to get up and read my Bible every day because that's what I'm supposed to do. But it's a true relationship. Our enthusiasm may wane and we may return to our old ways of life. We may even lose sight of the decision that we have made in the first place to follow the Lord. In Mark 4, 16-17, Jesus explains the meaning of the seeds that fell on the rocky ground without much soil. And he says this, these are the seeds, these are the ones sown on rocky ground. When they hear the word, immediately they receive it with joy. But they have no root in themselves. They're short-lived. When pressure or persecution comes because of the word, they immediately stumble. You see, our faith can be like the first little pig who built his straw house. It was quickly built, but it quickly fell down when the wolf began to blow because it lacked substance. The structure of his house was weak. So what are some of the pressures or persecutions you may face in today's society as a new Christian? Or you may have been a Christian for a while and we still face persecution, don't we? Well, some pressures may be to change your life, how you live. You may be told the following by well-meaning or not people in your life. Don't you go to church now? And I'm sure we've all heard these. I'm sure I'm not the only one. You shouldn't be doing that. What? You've become a Christian? Well, there goes all the fun in your life. Or even some well-meaning congregation members may say to you, you can't do that anymore. Oopsie, that's a naughty word. And I've had that one. I became a Christian when I was 15. And I had a well-meaning person come up to me probably about, 4 or 5 years ago. And they said to me, "You've just invoked the shortest verse in the Bible." Okay, what is that? And he said, "Jesus wept." And I went, "Really? Why did Jesus just weep?" "Because of what you just said." And I went, "Really? Jesus wept because of something that I just said?" Wow, okay. Now, for those of you that know me, you know that I have foot and mouth disease. If you tell me a phrase, I'll say it backwards, or I may even mix it up with another one. And I'm pretty sure there's someone on the front seat who's actually just had a little bit of a giggle there, because I'm sure it's hereditary, because one of my sons, the younger one, actually has the same problem. However, his lovely girlfriend, she comes to our place and she says, "Reese said this the other day." And I went, "Yeah," or "Reese said this the other day." And I went, "Yeah, what's wrong with that?" "It doesn't go with that phase, it goes with this one." I went, "Oh, really? Oh, yes, it does." So we're both exactly the same. But when this person said to me over, something that I said, "You've just invoked the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept," I actually stood up to him and I said, "Well, you know what? My God loves me unconditionally. And I know that Jesus isn't weeping for me in heaven because of something I said. He knows my heart. He knows when I get it wrong and when I don't." So we just have to be careful, church, on what we say to people, because if I wasn't strong enough in my faith, I could have taken that. I actually could have walked out the door with my faith. And I could have been judgmental of myself and gone, "Well, gee, I don't want Jesus weeping every second minute because of something that I say. Maybe I shouldn't be a Christian." So what does it take to strengthen one's faith? Well, what could the first little pig have done differently? Maybe he could have changed his attitude and taken the warnings about the wolf seriously. I mean, if you remember his words, "I build my house of straw. I build my house of hay. I toot my flute. I don't give a hoot. And I play around all day." Is this to say that Christians can't have fun? Absolutely not. I think we have more fun. I mean, I think it's fantastic, especially when you've been touched by the Holy Spirit and you can't help but laugh. And some people think, "My gosh, they're drunk," and it's like it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so not. So, we can have so much fun as Christians. But we also have to take our faith seriously in order for it to grow. Strong enough not to give up in the face of adversity. And instead, we remain strong and we weather the storms. So what are some ways? Well, as a new Christian, maybe it's doing an Alpha course where you get to learn the fundamentals of Christianity. Or maybe it's joining a connect group or a serving team where you get to have fun and do the journey with people. As Jimmy said, we had so much fun cleaning out this building last weekend. There was 40 of us. We were laughing, we had lunch together, we were encouraging one another. It was a lot of fun doing it side by side. Faith cannot be built in isolation. And as a congregation member, well, how about we look out for new Christians? And let's not use legalistic comments and become judgmental of others. Let's be in the habit of building one another up and not tearing each other down. And so the second little pig. Well, the second little pig's house was made of sticks. And while it was stronger than the straw, it also couldn't withstand the adversity it faced when the wolf knocked on the door. Again, this little pig's attitude or thinking was sloppy. And instead of looking ahead, he focused on the present. And this is evident not only in the materials he used to build his house, but also his outlook in life. And his little tune as he built it was, "I build my house of sticks. I build my house of twigs. With a hey diddle diddle, I play on the fiddle and I dance all kind of jigs." This little pig can be likened to the seed that fell amongst the thorns and eventually choked. When the things of this world shout louder to us, church, than our faith, Jesus explains what happens when we start strong but focus on the immediate gains rather than on the long-term prospects. In Mark 4:18-19, it says, "Others are sown among thorns. These are the ones who hear the word, but the worries of this age, the seduction of wealth, and the desires for other things enter in and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful." You see, these people desired to be wealthy, coveting what others had, trying to keep up with the Joneses. However, we have to remember that Jesus was speaking to people centuries ago. I mean, after all, we don't have this issue. Not in the 21st century. We don't keep up with the Joneses. We don't covet other people's huge, massive TVs and walk past their big boxes when they put them on the nature strip going, "Wow, wish I had that." No, I hate to say it, but we are the same type of people. Doesn't matter what century we live in. And I love the fact that the Bible speaks to the people that Jesus was teaching this parable to, but it also speaks so much to us today. Matthew 6:19 says, there's no real value that comes from material stuff because the treasure is in our heart. So Matthew 6:19-20, "Don't collect for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But collect for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves don't break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." So maybe, because let's face it, not all of us want to keep up with the Joneses. But you may be one of the people who at the beginning of Mark 4:18-19 says, we worry about the things of this age. And again, Matthew 6:34 says, "Therefore don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Because we don't even know, church, what's going to happen to us when we walk out the door. We can't predict what's going to happen in an hour's time, let alone tomorrow. So instead of focusing on the main thing, our faith, sometimes we appear to shift our focus away from Jesus to things of this world. And while things are going really well and really good, we just carry on. But as we know, and as I said earlier, how quickly it goes from being on the top of the mountain to being down in the valley. And it's when we're in the valley, if our faith isn't strong, we sit there and we start going, well, why is this happening to me? Where is Jesus amongst all this turmoil? Has he left me? And meanwhile, Jesus is going, here I am. I'm still knocking. I still want to be a part of your life. And I understand that sometimes it's hard to activate our faith, but it's so rewarding when we do. Now, for me growing up, I grew up in a family of a single mum, so money was fairly tight. But I'm here. I had a great upbringing. But for me, money, it is a security, but I don't want a lot of money. In fact, we bless a lot of people, but it is still a security. And so we had to activate our faith a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. One of our sons was going up to the local high school. It was October. And he'd gone up there on orientation day. We went, great, he can walk to school. This is brilliant. And he came home that particular day and he said to us, I can't go to that school. I'm like, what? And he goes, no, the way the kids treat the teachers, there was bullying in the playground. I don't want to go to that school. We said, well, it's October. You start high school in February. Where are you going? Well, I decided I'd like to go to the semi-private school up over there. I thought, great. Now I have to actually drive you as well. I mean, you could have walked. And we went, well, that's going to cost us $5,000 extra. And none of us, Luke and I, weren't getting promotions that we knew of during the year. Where are we going to come up with $5,000? And we said to this particular child, well, that's fine. You go and check it out. And if all the doors open, then that's where you're supposed to go. We will trust that that's where the Lord wants you. And guess what? All the doors opened. I went, okay. Around about the same time, the same child said, I really, really want to try out for rep basketball. Now, he had been asking for 3 years straight, and 3 years straight, Luke and I had said no. And the reason we said no was because it was on a Friday night. That was our Connect group. We loved our Connect group. And we also didn't want to drive around the countryside every Friday night, but it was also going to cost $3,000. But we said, all right. He said, well, it's the last time that I can try out. Well, he did. I'm not too sure if he knew this at the time, but we kind of found out through the back door that this particular year, besides all the kids who normally played rep basketball, there were only 30 kids trying out, but there were only 3 spots. And we went, all right, yeah, you go try out. Not a problem. And we went, it's not great, is it? He's actually here today too. But, we went, well, okay, well, $8,000, that's a lot of extra money that you've got to find in a year, right? And we're talking 8 years ago, I think it was, or something. Anyway, he got in. Of course he did. And we had some amazing times driving him around every single Friday night to the country places that I've never even heard of. And we said, well, Lord, we're not going to stress. We're not going to worry about the $8,000 that we have to somehow find. We're going to put it at your feet, and we're going to say, over to you, because you've opened these particular doors. I can honestly say, church, I don't know where that $8,000 came from for that year, but not once did we have to scrimp and save and go, do without food or do without going to the movies or whatever it was. The Lord came through and he provided for us. We turn to the Lord instead of worrying. And as we can see in times of adversity, we have to strengthen our faith. And rather than pulling away from the Lord, Luke and I, we leant in. And I'd like to encourage each one of us this morning, when hard times come, lean into the Lord. But also come to church or Connect group or whatever it is. Surround yourselves with like-minded people who can encourage you and do the journey with you as well. Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. And I'm so thankful, we may not have been at Connect Group on those Friday nights for the next 5 years or whatever it was, but our Connect Group continuously prayed for us. What we were worried about with our son not being able to go to youth group and have a faith, he's still got a really strong faith. And I just thank the Lord that the Lord looks after the stuff that we can't. We just have to hand it over to him. And so the third pig, I love the third pig. He's called Practical Pig. I'm a pretty practical person, so I can relate to the third pig. Well, he must have been, I think, the eldest of the brothers. Some may say he had a chip on his shoulder, especially when singing his tune. I built my house of stone. I built my house of bricks. I have no chance to sing and dance, for work and play don't mix. You can play and laugh and fiddle. Don't you think you'll make me sore? I'll be safe and you'll be sorry when the wolf comes to your door. However, one could also argue that being the oldest brother, he heard the story so many times about the wolf that he actually took notice of it. He paid attention and he understood the full meaning of the message. That the message he heard fell on good ground. He wasn't saying he couldn't have fun, but he was advising that if you're serious about something, you have to put in the effort. He planned ahead of time in constructing his house. He took time aligning the bricks and making sure that the mortar in between those bricks was strong and set properly. Why? So when adversity struck, his house stood firm. It didn't collapse. And not only was he able to save himself, but he was also able to stand strong for his brothers. And what struck me about this third little pig was that while his tune may have made him appear standoffish and superior to his brothers at first, when adversity struck all three of them, he opened the door and his brothers could join him and stay safe. He didn't turn around to them and say, well, sorry, you know what, you didn't listen to the message. Yeah, shut the door. You can be pig food for the wolf. He didn't do that. He opened the door and he let them in. He was their big brother. Big brothers are supposed to do that most of the time. And this image corresponds to the final part of Jesus' parable in Mark, where he says, "But the ones sown on good ground are those who hear the word, welcome it, and produce a crop 30, 60, and 100 times what was sown." You see, when our faith is strong and developed, we are able to reach out to those in need. Our attention extends beyond ourselves to those within the community. And being part of a community allows us to help one another, to strengthen each other's faith, and to hold each other accountable. And you know, some people have a real issue with the word accountable. They sometimes think of that as a negative word. But I love that I can be accountable to my senior pastors. I love that I'm accountable to you, that we get to serve you as part of the CIA team every week. I love that I am accountable to coming here and knowing that I'm going to be taught something that I can use during the week to strengthen my faith. Romans 15:1 says, "Now we who are strong have an obligation to bear the weaknesses of those without strength and not to please ourselves." Church, let's have an outward focus and not an inward focus. Let's have a focus where we're not coveting what other people have got and trying to keep up with the Joneses, which we were made from dust. We're going to go back to the dust and be with him in heaven where our treasure is. We can't take anything with us, but we can stand strong in our faith. We can develop our faith while we're here this side of heaven so that we can encourage others along that journey as well. So in conclusion this morning, I would like to ask you all a question. How strong is your faith at the start of this year? Is it constructed of straw, sticks, or bricks? Is your faith built on perseverance, taking time to pray, read the Bible, explore, and challenge yourself? You know, faith is more than a knowing word, it's an action word. You can have faith in a chair that will support you, but until you sit in it and test it, it's just going to be a pretty chair sitting in the corner. We don't know whether it's going to hold you up or not. So let's build our faith journey brick by brick in 2024 and remain strong so that we're not blown over by adversity. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you. I thank you that in times of adversity, Lord, that we can lean on you. We can lean in, knowing that you are going to be there with us day in and day out. But Lord, I just really pray that in 2024, each one of us can build our faith brick by brick and make it strong. Maybe take that responsibility for ourselves, Lord. May we not look to others to, make us feel uncomfortable or to, just to not use it as an excuse for not growing my own faith journey. May I learn to grow my faith journey by reading the Bible, by praying to you, by having a relationship with you. Lord, I thank you for others at Bayside Church. I thank you for the Restart program where we can get to do this journey together, where we can get to do it by ourselves, but we can get to do it together as well. And I just pray, Lord, that we can stand strong so that when we get to the end of 2024 and we reflect back, we can say, yes, my faith is so much stronger than what it was at the beginning of this year. We praise you and we just thank you for that, Lord, in your name. Amen.